Piers Morgan had to broadcast some very damning videos of Trump that points to what is an indisputable, undeniable, incomprehensible too, violation of Trump's campaign promises. Even if you had supported him, which obviously I didn't, but even if you were believing him, and even now, if you trust him so much that you are just thinking, surely he'd only bring us into war with Iran if it was absolutely necessary, and there's definitely reasons he just won't tell us. The thing you have to admit is he lied whenever he campaigned on the exact opposite than what we're seeing now with a Middle Eastern regime change war. And that's what Piers Morgan demonstrates in a devastating fashion, despite Piers Morgan cheerleading Trump into office.
Prevents war and suffering in the future. What none of the advocates for attacking Iran can argue with a straight face is that Trump campaigned on war with Iran. He didn't. In fact, it was, of course, explicitly the opposite.
In addition, there must also be a complete commitment to dismantling the entire globalist neocon establishment that is perpetually dragging us into endless wars, pretending to fight for freedom and democracy abroad. We should have never gone into the Middle East. We should have never gone into the Middle East. Under my leadership, we will turn the page forever on those foolish, stupid days of never-ending wars. I am the president who delivers peace. I was the first president in decades who didn't start a war. I think we would have been good with Iran. I don't want to do anything bad to Iran. Speaking of World War III, I'll keep you out of World War III. What would happen if we had a war? We won't. With me.
Well, both President Trump and Vice President Vance billed themselves as the pro-peace ticket, a message which massively expanded his election-winning coalition. Tulsi Gabbard said only Trump could prevent war with Iran, as she switched sides to join him. And J.D. Vance articulated very clearly that a war with Iran would be expensive and against his country's interests.
Israel has the right to defend itself, but America's interest is sometimes going to be distinct. Like sometimes we're going to have overlapping interests and sometimes we're going to have distinct interests. And our interest, I think, very much is in not going to war with Iran, right? It would be a huge distraction of resources. It would be massively expensive to our country.
Just the quickest pause for the video amid all of this chaos. If you do appreciate these updates, please click the subscribe button, click the like button. Both of those are completely free, but subscribe is the most important to support what we do. Back to the video.
So the obvious question is, what's changed? Is Iran more of a threat now than it was?
No, and this also is after they said with Operation Midnight Hammer, which Ben Shapiro thinks is an epic base name, like Epic Fury, that they had obliterated the threat that was supposed to have been there, despite even then us having plenty of reason to believe that they were lying about the state of Iran's nuclear program. And it is interesting to be negotiating and to be coming out of meetings negotiating, saying we're making progress, and then to launch a war. Like, wait, so were you not making progress? If it's not a threat, which it's not like an imminent, oh, they're about to get a nuclear weapon and they're about to use it, and you're in the middle of negotiations, are you just not as effective as Obama was? You want to just, maybe you admit that you have to do war because you couldn't do what Obama did with diplomacy in preventing Iran from having nuclear weapons? Well, maybe you should admit that. But it was Trump, after all, who was famously posting over and over and over again that Obama's weakness would force him to go to war with Iran because he wasn't good enough at negotiating. Now, that's not what happened with Obama, but it is what's happening with Trump. Those facts, even if you, again, found a way in your head to believe this all makes sense, and I'm sure Trump has a good plan, and this won't just cause an even more destabilized, chaotic, and dangerous and threatening to us Iran, and that they will somehow facilitate a very effective regime change that will install a more friendly regime without boots on the ground and without a bunch of casualties, even though we've already now seen the number go up to 6 American soldier heroes' lives lost. Even if you believed all of that and you're thinking, this is going to be great, how do you answer for those contradictions? That's kind of a just indisputable point. But one thing I referenced, so Ben Shapiro is really pumped about this and is supportive of it. And he called out Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson. So I disagree with Ben Shapiro on his stance on the war, but what he says here about how the anti-war Trump fans try to tiptoe around blaming Trump is true.
At this point, you know whose war this is? President Donald J. Trump's war. He's the president of the United States. He commands the United States military. She is such a coward. She is such an unbelievable coward. You don't like President Trump? You don't like what he's saying? Just say his name, you coward. You unbelievable coward. Tucker and Megyn both. Unbelievable cowardice. Say his name.
So that part is true, right? Ben Shapiro is saying he's for this and it's Trump's war. So then I can go, I'm against it and it's Trump's war. We can debate. We can operate with the same facts but different stances. And I can criticize, as I did, bunch yesterday, Ben Shapiro. But what these other MAGA people who are against it, some of them will do, and I credit them with speaking out, but a lot of them are cowards. And they don't want to completely abandon Trump. So they do this weird thing where they act like, oh, Trump must have been coerced into it, or someone got in his ear and pressured him too much. Instead of saying he's the president of the United States, he's directing these attacks, and he is responsible for the consequences. Now, again, as I set it up a clip before in this way, if you need more clarity on is this a war or isn't it? They're doing a very Putin-esque thing. You remember when Putin invaded Ukraine? Actually, he still does this. And instead of calling it an invasion or a war, he would call it like a special military operation. And you're like, you just started a war. It's like, no, it's a special military operation. And now the Republicans are kind of doing that, where some of them are saying war, but then they don't want to admit that because then Congress would have to approve. And so then they go, actually, it's not a war, but we justify the deaths because that's war, but it's not a war. Mark Wayne Mullen recently on TV being like, the smell, the taste of war. It's like, you've never been in a war. Why are you saying that? And now here you have him immediately contradicting himself and then saying, wait, what's the quote? That was a misspoke. That was a misspoke.
Are there measures being taken not to eliminate other possible alternatives to leadership?
This is war, and we're taking out the threat.
This is war.
And if you're part of the threat, then you have the
He just said, this is war. All right, so keep listening.
You're a target. You know, what we'd call not all the arrows, but going after the archers.
You'll concede this is war. You'll concede this is war.
We haven't declared war. They declared war on us, but we haven't.
War. Secretary Hicks said
we haven't declared.
Just now, you said this is war.
They've called it war.
They've called it war. What I was saying. Okay, well, that was a misspoke. What I was saying that they've declared war on us, but war is ugly. It always has been ugly. But we're taking out a regime that's been trying to attack us for quite some time.
But you're not conceding this is war.
We have declared war.
So they declared a war on us, and the casualties we're experiencing and the reasons why this is unpopular is okay because war is ugly, but we're not at war because we didn't declare war. No. I know, because Congress is supposed to declare war. Why won't you have Congress declare war? Because we haven't declared war. That's the reasoning.
Are there measures being taken not to eliminate other possible alternatives to leadership?
This is war.
Okay, I just want to play that again. This is war. Oh, sorry, that was a misspoke. Nothing like misspeaking whenever you're saying that you're misspeaking. Nothing like misspeaking when you're explaining that you just misspoke, okay? That was a misspoke. I'm going to use that. That's interesting. Then this is just sickening. Look at Pete Hegseth. All of these leaders in our administration. Again, I've made all of my arguments. I've laid out my stance. If you disagree with it, that's one thing. But if you justify language like this that we've been seeing from Trump after originally we thought it was 3 American lives have been lost, now it's up to 6. And he said that's the way it is. And then you have Pete Hegseth saying this. Please just acknowledge you can't justify this. Maybe you think the war is in our interests somehow. But you can't justify this. Him reprimanding the media for reporting prominently on American lives being lost.
This is what the fake news misses. We've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground. We control their fate. But when a few drones get through or tragic things happen, it's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad, but try for once to report the reality.
Think about that. After his boss said that's the way it is in response to American, and there's going to be more in response to American soldiers dying in a war he chose to start. And then his war secretary says, why would the media, instead of reporting properly on how successful we are, why would they put little accidents or little tragedies as front page news? Because it's front page newsworthy? Because we're supposed to care a lot about whenever our sons and daughters and brothers and sisters are in harm's way? Pretty obvious, actually. And to characterize it as a couple drones get through, tragedies happen, that everyone wants to talk about them. Yeah, we do. Sickening. Really, really sickening. Tommy Vietor says, Hexes says reporting on American casualties is the fake news trying to make the president look bad. This is truly rock bottom from the most selfish, arrogant, unqualified Secretary of Defense in U.S. history. Indeed. So disturbing. Then you have Mike Johnson on this, is it a war or isn't it question, which it obviously is, which is why Trump keeps saying that.
Has attacked 3 of our U.S. embassies in the last couple of days. Okay, those are sovereign territories of the U.S. They have declared war on us. I don't believe in the semantics. We've talked about the language this morning. We're not at war right now.
What? Every time we say we don't want this, we don't want our family being put at risk or dying, our friends for this, you say, this is war. That's what happens in war. But then when we go, okay, well then why are you unconstitutionally going to war? Because Congress is supposed to do that. Then you say, well, it's not war, but they've declared war on us and they've attacked us, but we're not at war with them. It's a special military operation, says Putin. Or in this case, some of these Republican officials. Then you have Tim Burchett saying, listen, Lindsey Graham just loves bombing.
Senator Lindsey Graham is now calling for the U.S. to start bombing Lebanon in response to the Hezbollah IDF action.
Lindsey hadn't seen a fist fight he hasn't wanted to turn into a bombing raid, so I just take it with a grain of salt, dude. Yes, ma'am. That's a good quote.
And at the end, he says, that's a good quote. That was a good quote, but whenever you nail a quote, don't immediately compliment yourself for nailing the quote. That really defeats the triumph of the quote. Tim.